Salutations, and welcome to the 12th episode of this podcast series. The subject, King Edgar the Peaceful. Edgar reigned for 16 years between 959 and 975, and his moniker the Peaceful is quite a good representation of what those years were like. As I shall explain. The only place where it wasn't as peaceful was perhaps in the bedroom. But yes, I will explain that shortly. So, the first thing that Edgar did upon becoming king was recalling the Abbot Dunstan from exile and then eventually made him the Archbishop of Canterbury. With Dunstan, Edgar pursued some rigorous ecclesiastical policies. For example, enforcing Peter's Pence, which was almost like the tithe that was paid to the Vatican City, in order to keep it going as a loyal Roman Catholic nation. And indeed he domestically he enforced the payment, or the non-payments rather, of tithes to the local church, because tithes were a tenth of income to the local church. So Edgar tightened the law around that. Plus he also furthered the Benedictine rule, which meant that monks weren't meant to live in austerity, or in a sense of they must be punitive in order to serve God. They should be charitable and they should be accessible to the wider community. And furthermore, he also gave quite a lot of land to the church, which, as we'll see in the reign of his son, King Ethelred, this would have some unforeseen consequences. But that was quite a large part of his reign, was trying to shore up faith with the religious community, even though he himself was not a hugely religious man. Because he had quite a large sexual appetite. Again, he was only about 14, 15, same age as his brother Edwig when he became king. And he had 3 wives. It's not entirely clear if he married the first one, called Ethelfled. With Ethelfled he had Edward, who would eventually succeed Edgar in the year 975. He then got married to Wulfrith, and then got married to Ethelfrith, whose husband conveniently died in a hunting accident when Edgar first heard of Ethelfrith's beauty. I don't want to castigate either way with that one. So yes, and one of the notable things about Edgar is that in the year 973, which only 2 years before he died, he decided to crown himself, or Dunstan rather crowned him, which is quite unusual because you'd think a monarch would get crowned as king as soon as they become king. But no, Edgar wanted more of a confirmation service, a sort of show of prestige, and a sort of confirmation of how good and peaceful his reign had been so far. His coronation actually has set the precedent, or at least has set the base for coronations that we have right up until, I guess, 1952, when the current queen was crowned, such as the Oath, for example. At his coronation, the King of the Scots, King of Strathclyde, and other sort of local kings, such as in Wales, offered their fealty in a similar way that they had done to King Aethelstan back at Eamont. And this was quite a good success for Edgar. During Edgar's reign, the sort of 16-year long nature of it and the peaceful, quite well-governed nature of the country meant that England became consolidated. So, for example, he reformed coinage. No town was over 30 miles away from the nearest mint, again, which is helpful because a common currency sort of helps foment a sense of national belonging and identity. And yes, so Edgar's reign was certainly better than Edwig's. I would probably say better than Edred's as well. But nevertheless, he was a decent king, and yes, no one has really heard of this guy, like with a lot of these Anglo-Saxon kings. But that is kind of what he did, and I think largely he was quite a successful king. And with that, we will go on to King Edward the Martyr next time. Thank you very much.